My name is Dr. Paul Hickey. I'm the CFO of StealthEnomics and like to welcome you to our second installment of the Higher Ed CIO Webinar Series, or as I like to call it, the Anti-Insomnia Series, because we want to talk about topics that keep CIOs up at night, and how can we help them sleep better. By the way, I wanted to send a special thanks to TPX, who joined us on our inaugural webinar. So please go ahead and take a look at that recording. And also, if you're interested in a free cybersecurity threat assessment program, please let us know. We'll be happy to get you one. So on to the topic of today, campus safety. As an 18 to 22-year-old undergrad myself, that's a few years ago, I certainly did not navigate the best safe decisions. And those of you that are charged with their safety today can certainly appreciate that. Campus violence, unfortunately, I made some bad decisions. I went to a party, not with my normal group of friends. I was followed out by 4 guys, and well, you can see a 1v4 didn't certainly go in my direction. Luckily, there were no weapons, but it could have been a lot worse, so I'm very fortunate. Also, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure a suite mate stole my very nice Nikon camera my sophomore year in college. So unfortunately, some disappointments in my own life, and hopefully we can help the current thing. But with that, I want to bring in our resident expert, John Norris. He's 20 years of higher education experience in information technologies and information systems management. He currently serves as the CIO for Johnson C. Smith University, a private university, and his day is comprised of taking care of the IT needs of administration, staff, faculty, and of course, those pesky students. So John, tell us about your week. What happened with those great students?
Well, good afternoon, Paul. And when I talk to people about who I'm here to serve and what I'm here to do, I always put students first. Trust and believe. Always have the interest of the students mind first. Those faculty and administrators, they can wait their turn. But the students are bread and butter, and the reason we're here, and they're also the most important asset that the university has, and they're going to be our future, whatnot. So as we try to think about things in campus safety, really they become first and foremost in mind. There was a day when you could leave campus safety and that kind of stuff to the campus police department and maybe some other area like residence life. But today, it's everybody's business. And because these students are so heavily tied into technology, obviously I play a big role in making sure we're trying to keep these students safe. Just so happens yesterday we had a power outage. And the power outage, we have generators and most of the systems, everything was fine, things came up. But the systems that tended to struggle a bit happen to tie into our campus safety. Some of our cameras went offline and didn't come back up immediately. Some of the access readers that allow folks in and out of buildings, still haven't come back up. And that was yesterday, maybe a little bit less than 20 hours ago and whatnot. And so while many things now, the things that students are going to access are in the cloud, some things like safety, we still keep a lot of things on premise and keep direct control of that stuff. Well, I started immediately thinking about, okay, how are the students going to navigate? This is still 5:30 p.m., so it's still light outside. How are they going to get to the place they need to, get some directions? How are they going to access? Cafeteria is open right now. How are they going to access the buildings they need to get into and whatnot? And what happens if there is a major security event?
Right.
And whatnot. And right now I have no control over some of those things. So I can't ask, hey, lockdown in place, or hey, make sure you're here when they may not even be able to get into that location. So the threats are all over.
So wait, John, you have buildings that people can't even get into now? Or how are you managing that?
Well, they can now, but at the time, because the power outage, when it kicked back on, some of the circuits may have been fried, or just some of the switch ports that control some of that may not have come back on right away, whatnot. So there's an override system in some of these systems, but it just depends on the age. Depends on the age and the technology you selected. So you can't rely on things that you put in maybe 6-7 years ago. Because maybe 6-7 years ago, the impetus for the spending was about something else. keeping students in, whatnot. But there are times when you got to keep people out and whatnot. We are also an urban campus, okay? An urban campus to me means, we're pretty much open to the public to come in and around our campus at any time. That brings a whole new set of security concerns because at any given time, the university needs to know who is at our campus, who's here, and essentially what's your business here and whatnot.
Well, I'll tell you, those 4 guys that jumped me, they were not students.
They were not students.
And we had an open campus, so I
Yeah.
can hear you. I hear
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Paul, same thing happened to my daughter. She was in the library at her school, another school, and left. She was doing some work on her computer, left to go to the bathroom, came back. She's assuming, oh, these are all my classmates, all my friends, students,
Sure.
people from my university. Came back from the bathroom and actually saw the person walking out with her laptop. Well, I just snatched it up off the table and walked out with it. And for some reason, I don't know where she got this from, but for some reason, she decided to do something about it and whatnot. And
somehow I think she got that from
you. She followed the gentleman and actually, on the way, ran into one of the campus security officers. And so she was able to get it back. But it was amazing to see there. But all the stuff out there, cameras, access control, proximity readers, all kinds of things out there to promote safety. But it's still about the people. It's still about the people and the people doing what you expect them to do most of the times in the way you expect them to do it. And when you bring in those other elements, you just have no idea of what's going to happen. Here in the city, if I can indulge just a little bit longer.
All right, you got a couple minutes. I remember I'm the time cop. I got to keep you in check.
Yeah, here in the city, they recently put in a new system that's designed to pick up gunfire. So immediately when gunfire happens, the city's cameras activate and bring those cameras onto a screen somewhere at a city control, where the neighborhood in and around our university, they've allowed us to tap into that system so that we can be notified early on if there's even a hint of gunfire in and around the area. I think it picks up within maybe a half-mile radius or so. So
you've got a nice complement where you're working with the local authorities in the city to expand your scope of safety.
Absolutely, because we are urban environment. There's a police precinct or satellite office not far from our campus, but our campus police department does work well with the city police law enforcement officers as well. And they have lots of technology, which lets us know what technologies we're lacking sometimes. So, surveillance and anti-theft and just being able to know what's going on your campus at any given time. It's just the most important piece you could ever dream of. I'm trying to keep us safe.
Dreaming is good. Hey, a minute or two, and then we're going to go ahead and switch to the second stage of our program. But I wanted to ask you, if you can do this in 90 seconds, what do you see as the biggest safety issue on the horizon that maybe we don't even know about yet, or it's emergent, and a lot of your fellow CIOs are wrestling with it or not even aware it could be an issue?
Well, one of the bigger things is it's a little bit abstract, but there's a lot of social engineering going on now, especially with social media and the idea that our students are on their devices so often. And the students are getting lured into things, students are being promised things. There's social engineering going on that's leading our students many times down a path where we have trouble controlling what's going on. When they're here on this campus, when we know what's happening, we got a pretty good idea. But when they're starting to interact across the globe and starting to become involved in different communities that we're not even aware of, it just could be a gaming community, this one particular game or so, it's very hard to keep folks safe when you really don't have any idea of what's of interest to them and what they're really dedicated to. And there's some social engineering going on where the promise of big dollars or the promise of the opportunity to be a part of this super gaming tournament is going on, and it's designed to lure students and folks to places where then crime can happen to them. So that's a big thing that we're trying to prepare.
All right, John, I gotta pull the do the old hook there. But actually, that sounds like a modern version of what my parents did is when we were kids, making sure they had the nicest toys. So I was home, my brother was home, and then our friends were there so they can keep their eyes on us. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, John, if you don't mind, could you stick around? We got some Q&A at the end, but With that, I'd like to transition to our vendor partner segment. And we have CallTower joining us. Since its inception in 2002, CallTower has evolved into a global cloud-based enterprise class unified communications, collaborations, and contact center, providing solutions for companies worldwide. And with that, we have Brice Drogosch. Brice has over 25 years of experience in strategic sales and management. He's currently serving as the channel development director, and he has an extensive experience, but primarily focusing now on educating new partners on the deployment of real-time any-to-any event notification. Brice, that was a mouthful, but with that, I want to turn it over to you. Please dazzle us with your expertise.
Thank you, Paul. Hey, and John, you really made this easy as a softball. Like you said, one of the biggest things that we're finding with all of our consultations across the nation on campuses and colleges, that everybody sees managing safety and critical notifications as utmost importance, right? They want to be able to instill that confidence in the student body and the staff and in parents that when you send your kids to school that they're going to be safe. And the key that we're finding, I'll share with you what we work with a lot of these campuses, and initially, they were talking about having things that did an audio alert system over speakers. But as we've emerged with all the other technology that's out there, as John had stated, they've got camera technology, you've got access control technology, you would be able to tap into the 911 systems. You want to be able to have a tip line. All these other different types of capabilities and technologies you've got at your disposal are available to help be part of your overall safe campus workflows. So what we're seeing from a lot of the universities is the desire to find a holistic approach that can provide a single pane of glass that enables them to have one way to detect something, have a way to get all the messaging out in a timely fashion, and be able to provide a great response and follow-up, right? So by doing that and looking at all of the different types of things that people need to have integrated into this flow, you've really got to look at a holistic platform in the middle that can help drive all of that. For example, we had Biola University, and they have criteria that says that they want to make sure that 90+% of the people they notify are getting a notification. And in their tests, because all they did was send out to an SMS, they got about 20%. And so obviously you can see what the the trustees, et cetera, they were really concerned. And they then said, look, we've got to have more ways to notify people, put it on the desktop, put it on my cell phone, put it on the speakers, flashlights. We've got digital signage everywhere. Put these things up there so that everybody becomes safe and be addressed. The other thing they did too was to talk about, again, this wheel and all the different things that you want to look at. When you talk about safety, for them, earthquakes is a big problem. So they were able to incorporate into their overall flows a notification from the earthquake center so that they can get out a message to their kids within seconds when there is going to be an earthquake. And that helps save lives for them. So when I look at this and I look at the most critical components of an alerting technology, go to the next slide, there's three components that we find everybody needs to look at, is detecting. So I want to be able to detect something. So what does that mean? That means I want to be able to have a panic button, whether that be a blue light pole or physical panic button, or give the students an app that they can have a panic button on their system, have the phones or the desktops have that ability, but also have things like IoT sensors or video cameras. As John had mentioned, when we have a gunshot residue, a gunshot detection, I want to have that notification integrated into my system so I can send out the proper notifications to everybody to keep them safe. Same thing, like you don't have to always have those type of emergencies. Let's say I have a chemical spill in the lab and someone needs to have a nurse there because they got something in their eye. We want to be able to do that as well. So you got to look for a system that can give you as many ways that you can provide a detection as possible. Then when I get that detection, I need to notify. I need to get the word out as quickly as possible, as intrusively as possible, and get the right messaging to the right teams so that they can get the action. You may want to have something that goes to the student body, but you might want something else that's going to go to the local police department. And then I want to have a system. I've detected something. I've notified everybody. I also want to be able to confirm that people are safe or if they need help. I want to be able to manage and mitigate a response to be able to do that. I look at Centralia College, a large community college up in Washington. Their problem was, like most schools, they had mass notification, but they had 4 different mass notification systems. So when they had an incident, they would have an SMS go out. They'd go to a different system and log in and send an email and do these other things. And that was costing them time. And the inspiration for what they were looking for was from all of the concerns that the faculty and the students had when you're not able to quickly address a situation. So what they did is they found a system that can incorporate all these different types of detection capabilities into one space and be able to notify everybody and then manage it after the fact. And right after they did this, they had an assault, kind of like Paul's, but Paul had a button. He pressed the button. Well, not only did it go to the campus safety, it also went out and alerted students that there's something going on in the quad. It also went out and sent things to the police department, and they were able to apprehend that assault person in under 30 minutes, and then send out an all clear to all the students that you now can resume going to that spot. This has been taken care of. So when you're looking at these things, I think you got to look at what are your detection capabilities? What are you trying to protect? How are you notifying everybody to make sure that they're getting notified? And then how do you manage it after the fact? All right. So if we look at the components of a system, the places you need to look at, mass notification. As I had mentioned, many colleges have multiple mass notification systems, but that's part of the problem because they're owned by different entities or they have different interfaces, they have different levels of effectiveness, etc. What you really need to have is one notification system that can be used by everybody and all the stakeholders. And inside of that notification system, as I mentioned on the prior slide, make sure you have all the different ways that people can be detect. Provide your students with as many ways to ask for help as possible. Notification. Make sure that those notifications are getting out to help the people, not only to the students, but also to the teams that are going to be able to respond and be able to manage it. Other areas you should look at, and John had mentioned this, I want to know who's on my campus. And a little more difficult in an urban situation, but looking at visitor software or things like that you can put in the cloud and incorporating that into your mass notification system can also be helpful, right? And there's a lot of different products out there that do that, but figuring out how you can do that within your campus environment is great. And then under duress again, this speaks more back to that detection. You really want to think about how does someone ask for help in a time of duress. They're going to be panicking. We've all heard that 911 call where someone's screaming and yelling and you don't even know where they're at. We want to be able to have a panic button that when it's pressed, a clear message goes out and gets to everybody. But you also want to have as many ways as possible, like that assault victim I mentioned in Centralia. They hit the light pole, but someone else saw it going on and they clicked on their emergency button on their cell phone. So they had multiple points of notification. And that's what you need to have to keep people safe.
Well, Brice, I didn't have a panic button, but I was a bit panicked and I got knocked on my butt. That's about as close as we had back then, but certainly some great stuff there. Hey, can we bring John back in? All right. I need to be on the bottom because I'm holding up these two experts. I am merely the tour guide who is bringing this home.
Well, let's hope
John.
you're strong, Paul.
All right. Yeah, I got to keep working out. So, John, what did you hear from Brice's talk that intrigued you, excited you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the things that, and it just comes with experience, we're always chasing the next greatest technology. But so many times when we chase that next great technology, we forget about some of the fundamentals of what we originally needed the original technology for. So for instance, recently everybody's going to the soft phones. People are moving from normal desktop phones. But one user said, hey, you know what? If my mobile phone dies, I don't have any way at all to contact anyone. I can't even call 911. I used to have a phone on my desk and I could just hit a button and get to campus police or 911. Now I can't do that if I happen to forget to charge my phone and whatnot. So it's the real thought process behind, okay, what are all the pieces to this puzzle? And can I find one group, one entity that helps me solve those pieces to the puzzle? The other thing that I did want to touch on was that, on a college campus, every department wants to communicate with students. Every single department, from the intramural sports activities to the residence life to the
Don't say Department of Campus Parking.
No.
They like to communicate with me a lot.
Yeah, and there is a tendency to, if you can believe it or not, over communicate via SMS to these students. And so they get numb to the SMS messages sometimes when they really are for emergencies. And they just kind of glance at their phone and keep going and don't even realize, because we've over communicated and tried to all use the system for more than we intended it to be. We're trying to communicate when really we should be trying to make sure this system is available for emergencies and for notifications that are life-saving in many instances and whatnot. And so students, they don't really report it, but what they'll do is they'll just kind of glance at it and ignore it, and it could be information that saves their lives and whatnot. So we do have to protect ourselves against that. And that's just some of the stuff that as administrators and professionals, we have to be aware of. The technology is out there and we should be using as much of it as we possibly can. And as Brice mentioned, trying to have one pane of glass that can do all that stuff is the right strategy. But internally, we have to also be thinking about how we're going to use this strategy for the end game and not all the other peripheral things that it can also do.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Like, for example, we've had that same question about SMS is not really great for the emergency. So that's why, we have people that they'll put a push notification on their cell phone so that it'll beep, kind of like when you get your Amber Alert, right? You all know what to do when you get an Amber Alert, but you can do the same things with these technologies if you've got them at your disposal. Most people do, right? And incorporate that into the flow. That's what I mean by the intrusive nature, is just looking at what you don't do them all with that. I think there's a certain level that you've got to have, right? If there's an intramural game, right, that's not life threatening, right? Right. Or hot dogs at the campus bar or whatever, right? We want
Wait
to
a
make
minute.
sure.
Are you speaking out against free food for college students?
I never had any free food at our place.
That's how you live off the land. Hey, if I could jump in, both of you mentioned at some point, wanting to know who's on campus. What are some of the ways that students and faculty and administration unknowingly invite or bring, non-university people on campus? And is there any way to prevent that?
I'm not sure if there's a way to prevent it 100%. Because a college or a university is really a part of that community. They really have to be a part of the community. And you never know when you're going to inspire someone to join the college or university just because they had the opportunity to walk onto the campus or see something exciting going on. But to your question, we do invite a lot of people onto campus, and we hope that they're like-minded people who are really there for the right reasons. But like other places in society, that's becoming less and less controllable. There was a time, obviously, we could go to the movie theater and believe we're really with other people who just want to see this movie, not someone who may have some other ideas in mind. It's a tough task, Paul, and it's also tough trying to keep different groups of folks safe. You got 18 to 24-year-olds, that's trying to keep safe. And then you got this whole set of faculty and staff that could be of all ages that you're also trying to get safe. And they don't think alike in many instances and whatnot. But yeah. And so they're bringing all kinds of
Sorry,
people.
I laugh. I have nieces and nephews in that age range.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a tough task, and it's just not something you want to take on by yourself, or not try to use some technology to help with that.
Yeah. I would 100% agree that it's very difficult in an open campus environment like that, right? If you got a facilities-based thing where where you're entering through a single entrance, you can safeguard that. But when you got an open campus and quads and things like that, I thought about, like, when I was a kid, just think about ordering a pizza. You don't know who's delivering that pizza, right? Or calling for an Uber. You're bringing someone in on the campus that you have no idea what they're about, right? And I don't know how you can stop that.
Right, and you have these on-campus basketball stadiums and football stadiums, and you're inviting tens of thousands of people in, and you're trying to check everyone, but you're not checking the trunks of their cars. You know what I mean?
Right.
For 65,000 people or whatever, or you're not. You just don't know these days. It's just a tough task, Paul, and you just need all the help you can get with it. I don't envy those places like Ohio State that has 60, 70,000 people. I just can't even imagine how you could ever feel completely safe at a place like. I'm sure they have tons of officers, tons of staff, but I just can't imagine, and tons of technology, but that just seems impossible.
All right. Well, hey, I've got an eye on the clock because, again, I'm the time cop. We do have enough for about, let's give you each about 45 seconds. Brice, any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to highlight?
No, I just think you want to take a look at your safety posture and what you're trying to accomplish. And I think the best thing you can do is look at all your resources, look at what you got in the cloud, look at how these things can work together, and plan. Also when you're planning, I really go back to awareness. Like I know when my son went to school and he was a freshman, and they don't pay attention to much, right? The seniors may know, and he was out in the middle of campus. He was being tracked down by somebody, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't know that he had a button he could press. They had mobile technology. They also had light poles, but he
How
wasn't
long ago
aware.
was this, if I may ask?
2 years.
2 years. Oh, so this is new. This technology is there. Okay.
Yeah. So they had all those things, but he wasn't aware of it. I'm sitting there going, we need to do a better job, I think, of making sure that students are aware of what they have available to them, and that campus safety is not your enemy. They're there to help you, right? Sometimes people don't want to have the authority and all that kind of stuff until they need it.
Well, if only he had a dad that was knowledgeable in the industry. Oh, wait, that would require him listening to his dad. All right, fair enough. All right, John, any closing thoughts?
And what we learn is we try to cram all these stuff to the students when they come in, like new student orientation. And they're only going to remember about 30% of what we throw at them because they're just excited to be here. They're excited to be a new student in a new place and on campus and whatnot. But as Ray said, it's really about leveraging the technology and the players in the space. At most smaller institutions like I'm at, you just don't have someone dedicated to that and whatnot. So you're trying to do it when you have some spare time, when you have some downtime between meeting A and meeting B, and campus safety is just too important for that. So you got to engage with some folks who already know how to do this work, who know the business and who know what's happening out there across the landscape of higher education and whatnot. Otherwise, it's just almost an impossible task because something's going on every moment on this campus that's probably putting someone at some form of danger. It really is, and whatnot, and that's just a reality you have to live with. But we need to try to partner with as many folks who know what they're doing as possible.
All right. Well, hey, gentlemen, thank you so much. That was a great conversation. I loved it. Brice Drogosch from Single Wire CallTower, thank you for lending your expertise, and of course, John Norris, our resident CIO expert and our anchor for our webinar series. Gentlemen, thank you again for all the expertise that you shared and the stories. I always love the stories. And those of you that are watching, thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live or recorded. please go ahead. Whoops, it might be the wrong way. Please go ahead and like us, follow us on YouTube, share the information. And if you're interested in that free cybersecurity assessment, please get in contact with us. Also, this is a continuing series. So our coming attractions on 8/15, we'll be joined by Blue Mantis. We're going to talk about ransomware, continuing the security portion of our series. And then we're going to diverge a little on the end of the month on 8/29. Sky Data Vault will be joining us to talk about cloud migration. So thank you very much for joining. I'm Dr. Paul Hickey. Have a great time and stay safe.